Here's a look into my process of taking a photo and making an acrylic painting out of that. I'll take my photo and I put it into the iPad app Procreate. That's where I can crop it and figure out what colors I'm going to need. Next I get my base proportions correct. You can use a grid method, sometimes I use a projector or a variation. Then I lay down an underpainting color. For this I used a red-orange and you wipe away the highlights with a paper towel. Then I like to establish my brightest highlights. They'll change and adjust as the painting continues, but this is when things are first coming into focus. Skipping ahead a little, I apply some basic darks also, again, just to get a rough idea of them. Then I do a second color wash, this time with more red because I found that to be more prominent in the photo. With that second wash dry, I start bringing in some colors that are a shade or two away from the base. Off-white, parchment, pale yellow. These are technically highlights still, but they're also better establishing contrast and depth. Here's where I start bringing in more detail and color into what I think of as phase 1. This will be washed over again with a thin pigment, but these details are going to show up as semi-buried within the final image. Shadows and highlights are a lot more than gradients of black and white. You can find plenty of colors inside these areas. Blues, reds, yellows, and greens, they all blend together to create the illusion of dark and light. And remember, the point isn't to recreate the photo. That already exists. It's to use it as reference for what you want to make from it. Occasionally I get to a place in the making of a piece of art where I'm tempted to stop. I look at the thing and I think, I like how this looks, but it's not what I'm trying to do. I don't trust accidental satisfaction, so I view moments like that as signs and I just keep going. My technique is pretty constant the whole way through. It just gets smaller and more targeted. I balance proportions and shapes with highlights and shadows. I focus that by sharpening details, but I don't get precious. Washing pushes things back. You can pull details forward with small highlights. I didn't mention it, but we were in second phase details for the past few videos. This is now third, final phase. Some paintings have more. This last part is about focusing on depth and separation via contrast. You want to avoid hard lines. Stark contrast is what lifts and divides peacefully. This last bit is going to be two videos that look really similar, but there's a reason to see them both. This is where you can see how acrylic paint can be used much like watercolor. I apply thin washes over areas to fade detail back, but it can also be used for reflective hue. Watered down pigment leaves slight color even when it's wiped away. That small amount is tricky to apply without the washing method. It takes patience, and using a dry brush to remove the excess, like an eraser, is how you can direct it more efficiently. You can see after it all dries, which is quick with acrylic, that the washes gave the shadows the gradient effect I was hoping for. A lot of colors go into an image, which at a glance seems like it ought to have only about 3 or 4. It's pretty much all layering and contrast at the end of the day.